Hello and welcome back to Raise Gamer videos and more Path of Exile 2 talk. Today though, we're talking about Pinnacle bosses. You probably heard about these, but the big question I think a lot of people will be having at this time is what are they and when will you actually face them? Do you need to be ready for them? Is it going to suddenly happen to you? So let's start with who and what are they? Well, these are Pinnacle bosses. They're special bosses that you go and defeat by doing special challenges prior. Some are going to be significantly harder to actually access compared to others, and two of them could potentially be how you unlock your final ascendancy points. They're very late game challenges though, going beyond the difficulty of the mini bosses that you'll be facing on boss specific maps. To give you an idea of when we first defeated them, Josh took down his first two at level 85 as a sorceress. Each special event has one associated with them. You know, the different activities like Breach, Ritual, Delirium, they all have these Pinnacle bosses. For Breach's Pinnacle boss, we have Zest, which has these weird sort of hand wings. For the Ritual, it's the familiar King in the Mists, who you may have or should have encountered in Act 1. For Expedition, it's an undead commander called Olroth. For Delirium, it's Simulacrum, although there are two special bosses you can encounter outside of, say, the Pinnacle one itself. And then there's also the endgame trial bosses. So you have Zarok the Eternal at the end of the Trial of Sechamus, and then by comparison, the familiar guy we see during the Trial of Chaos, the Trial Master himself. Then we have the true Pinnacle boss, the Uber boss, the Arbiter of Ash, who is said to be the most difficult thing in this version of PoE 2. But how do you actually get to fight these? How do you farm the resources to do so? Well, for a variety of them, you'll need to access your atlas and go to the home location. Next to the home location, just to the right here, is the realm gate. And if you click on that, you can actually put resources in there. So for quite a few of these Pinnacle bosses, you'll put something in here and go summon a specific boss. But say with the trials, you use the coins for that. And there's also, of course, the burning monolith to do with the Uber boss. So for the Breach Pinnacle boss, it really is just about defeating Breach monsters doing the event, as well as opening the clasped hands in those. These will relatively often drop Breach splinters, and when you get 300 of these things, you can turn them into a Breach stone. We take that to the realm gate as a reference, and that brings you to the Breach domain, and at the end, that's where the boss is waiting. Then for Ritual, we have the King in the Mists. For this, you'll come across Ritual altars, and you'll purchase from one of these at a certain point an audience with the King item to challenge the King in the Mists. Expeditions are a little bit different. You need to go to Danig, who's an NPC that will show up in your hideout after you find him the first time through the excavations. And then by speaking with him, you can use the Show Expedition Map option, and then progress logbooks. And inside of these, you could encounter Olroth with his special tomb that you blow up to open. So you might get logbooks just as part of a drop of doing normal excavations. And then these expeditions are essentially an excavation as a unique map that you go do. But you won't encounter him unless you've got a logbook that's over level 79, as seemingly the basis of it. Next for Delirium, we have the Simulacrum, but there's the two bosses associated with this, Omniphobia and Kosis. You can encounter those two named guys by engaging with Delirium events at random, or say when you mod a waystone with Distilled Emotions. So when you're in that Delirium environment, you might just find them. But by doing Delirium waystones or the events, you'll also build up splinters, which just like Breach, you put 300 of these together to form the Simulacrum, and then you put that into the Realm Gate to fight the boss. Next we have the Trials, so I'm going to just quickly show you an example in game here. The familiar coins for the trials, the Sechamus trial coins, or the Chaos trial coins. As you can see, it says area level, and then it says number of trials. So you will find a coin eventually that has the necessary thing. So with the Trial of Chaos, to face the Trial Master, you'd need a coin like this. As you can see, it very clearly says completing the secret challenge behind the door at the end of the trial will grant an additional ascendancy skill point. So for this one, it's area level 75 or higher, and then you also need number of trials 10. In this, you'll also need to get 3 different fate keys, which you find in the Trial of Chaos itself, having them ready when you've got this type of coin available to open the door at the end of the 10th trial. By comparison then, we have the Trial of Sechamus coins. This also needs to be level 75 plus, but it needs 4 floor trials as a minimum. That's what has the boss at the end. Lastly, we have the Pinnacle boss, which is associated with that special tower I mentioned. Here in the center, very quickly, somewhere near you, you'll actually be able to see the burning monolith, just off in the clouds, like you can see the tops of the towers here. So you'll be able to see it from the beginning. If you path over to it, you'll get a little conversation pop up to start a quest with Doriani. Approach the burning monolith and you will find inside a request for 3 special keys coming from 3 different citadels. These seemingly spawn in when you're doing red tier maps, So you find the 3 different special citadels, defeat all of them, get their keys. Each of them seem to represent the different act bosses. But either way, bring back the 3 keys to the Burning Monolith, and then with that, you can challenge the Uber boss. But how do the fights go? What are the quick tips for them? Well, no matter what boss you're going, pretty much the most reliable thing you can do is have potent CC build-up, whether that's direct stun or whether it's something like freezing or electrocuting them. So if you get 1 or 2 of these CC windows off, you'll have a reliable period where you can really go to town on them. So playing it safe until you have a stun build-up ready, then going really hard on them for the burst while it's safe while you're not dealing with mechanics, that's a universal rule. Now obviously I can't give you advice on how to play every single build in the game in regards to each of these bosses, but of course you're going to want the max resistances, you're going to stack max life, and I would recommend having some kind of significantly strong basis of mitigation. For myself with a witchhunter, that's going to be something like sorcery ward, which basically massively mitigates the element damage that I'm taking. You're seeing footage of Josh playing a sorceress where he has very low health overall, but a massive energy shield that works as a buffer for his actual life. There are ways you can convert certain damage types into physical or vice versa, and then stack that kind of resistances. But by the time that you're at a Pinnacle boss, I imagine you understand these things. So for the Breach boss, I would just quickly say that you want to space him out when he's doing his many missile attacks, and you want to watch out for those hands with the AoE slams. As usual with most bosses, circling around him is always a good idea, and giving him space when he's doing the deadly mechanics, such as going underground and chasing you, giving that as much space as you can, with high movement speed, and maybe even a blink if that's something you have access to. In regards to the King in the Mist, it's pretty cool. It's a multi-phase fight where you're dealing with, the humanoid version. Once you defeat him, you end up in this kind of maze that you have to work your way through quickly, eventually finding a portal to get out and get back into the real fight. Where just as before in the first version in the Act 1, you'll be dealing with tornadoes and lots of obstacles while dealing with the boss. The main gimmick with, say, the Expedition boss is the fact that he seems to revive after you defeat him the first time. The fight will not end the first time you bring him down. In regards to Delirium, this is essentially a multi-phase wave fight, almost like doing a breach or something, over and over and over, with the 2 big bosses or mini bosses that you may encounter in normal Delirium coming at you at the same time. In regards to the final boss of the Trial of Secumus, this is a time manipulator, so he does have some serious iframes. My advice is to go into the back left corner like we see Josh doing, to basically outrange the circular spin of lightning that he does, using the terrain to your advantage. On the other hand, for the Trial Master, he has kind of blood effects in regards to the Trial of Chaos familiar stuff. He'll have AoEs around himself that you just step away from, cones of blood that push out towards you that you want to roll to the side to get around, and then he'll spread these after a time stop, showing you the location that he's going to direct them at. So try not to find yourself pressed into a corner so you can always move around him and avoid those. And for the Arbiter of Ash, the, Uber Pinnacle boss, I don't have any advice for that one. Looks like it's going to be a real challenge when I get there. Now lastly, what do the bosses actually drop? Well, they're all going to reward skill points for their special Atlas skill trees, but also special items too. Different bosses can reward specific drops. For example, the Trial of Secumus with its honor system and the relic system, that boss can drop unique relics for that system. Josh actually got one, as you can see, but it does seem to be a one-use deal. In this case, it'll prevent any boons in that run, but in exchange the final boss will begin dropping blessed bonds. This could be a way to get the time lost jewels, which can be very potent. In general though, even difficulty 0 Pinnacle bosses will drop exclusive unique items that you can't get elsewhere. That's on top of the pile of drops and great potential for loot in general. But I did just mention there's different difficulties, and that's associated with each of their skill trees on the Atlas. So if we look at the Breach one, this is a great example and probably one that most people will begin with. By completing the Twisted Domain and defeating the boss the first time, you'll come away with 2 points. So you'll be able to spend them here. And no matter which way you go, you will be forced to add difficulty to the next one that you run. So at the end, you can have +4, the maximum difficulty, and then get access to, say, the highest level loot. As you can see though, it does have some crazy modifiers, like breaches will close and open slower, giving you much more potential. Massive increases to the mob density. Insane stuff where, your map could load in with a breach, and then it has these different percent chances to have an extra one, 3 extra breaches, or maybe even 10 extra breaches. So you massively modify the general activity, and by doing that you're also going to have a lot more access to breach splinters in this case, because you'll be getting way more of them per breach run. so you get access to the follow-up challenges of the Pinnacle boss sooner. And that is the case for all of them. So depending on the content that you're looking to do, what bosses you're hunting, you make that experience harder, but also more rewarding, ultimately upgrading all of the rewards that you find. And as you can see, yes, there is even one for the Burning Monolith at the top. Overall then, these bosses have unique rewards alongside their high value loot. When you kill them, you get to increase the challenge of following attempts, but also make it easier to farm up resources to encounter them again. There's also the potent rewards, and massively increasing the value of the activities associated with them. Basically, they're just really cool challenges with lots of rewards, giving you something to really test your build against. I think it's very cool we have this much variety for endgame bosses already, but obviously it'll take you some time before you get to challenge them the first go round. Hopefully this information will help you understand what to expect when you start building up to them. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.